Okay, here we are. 1 in 15 Fife home sellers lower their asking price every single month. QVT. So this is what we're on to talk about, actually. The 6 things you should really consider before you actually look to price reduce. Before you reduce your price, these are the 6 things to consider. Let's go through some of the background to this. Sophie, how did this all start? Where did we get these statistics from? And what is the Fife property landscape like just now?
Okay, so it's continuing to evolve. Many homeowners who have been on the market for a while are finding themselves kind of navigating, and this is where we need to kind of educate, they're navigating the decision of when and how much to reduce their asking price to attract buyers. With an increasing number of properties on the market in the Fife area, rising from 862 in August of 2022 to just over 1,000 in August 24, so 1,088. And for those that have been watching the shows over the last couple of weeks that me and Richard have been doing as well, you understand why they have increased and why that has happened, so you can go back and watch them. But the competition is becoming fiercer, more strategic pricing adjustments are more crucial than ever, and there's method behind the madness, and we will go into that and obviously
competition is becoming fiercer. Primarily, my gut reaction to that is because there's more properties on the market, but also because there's less buyers in the market because of a twofold factor. Mortgage affordability has gone up, but in the last 3 or 4 years, house prices have gone up as well. So mortgage affordability accounts for 2/3 of that, and house prices going up over the last 3 or 4 years accounts for 1/3 of that overall. So that's kind of where I think competition has become fiercer because would I be right in saying it's because of the number of buyers dwindling on the ground, the draconian attitude towards the Scottish government, maybe to second homeowners and service accommodation, private landlords, stuff like that?
Oh, there's a whole mix of that. It's an absolute mix of that. Loads of contributing factors. And a lot of people also, one thing that we've done a show on as well is people wanting to stay in rented as well because of that. So that's where there is less buyers. So that's where there's more obviously competition out there for sellers on the market. So that's where they do need to be more competitive with their pricing. And obviously we will go into kind of mastering that. But something we always say to our clients is it is not a reduction, it is a realignment, and we'll discuss that. We will discuss it to give more context and why. But let's talk about mastering the property portal price bands for optimal exposure.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
Okay, so this is what I've talked about this for quite a while, for the last 3 or 4 years, how a lot of estate agents don't understand how you should be mastering because a lot of estate agents actually still, some of them still work in the pre-internet price points. And so what I mean by that, understanding and utilizing price bandings on portals, for example, like Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, S1 Homes, and other websites as well are available at request, can significantly enhance your visibility of the property listings. These bandings are actually predefined. Remember, they're all predefined, these bandings. So when you go on, you get a choice of going from 50,000 to 100,000, from 100,000 to 110,000, 110 to 120. When you get up to about 300,000, you get up to 325. Then next is 350. Then next is 375. Next is 400. So it's key and significant that you must position yourself and your property's asking prices in one of these bandings, which will strategically draw more views and thus more interest and possibly viewings, and ultimately increase the chances of really achieving a sale. Now, For instance, let's just drill down what I said and take an example of that in property pricing and the significant threshold and setting the asking price where it should be. An asking price, ask for 300,000 instead of 299,950. Why did I say that? Well, if you ask for 299,950, it places your property in the search of 280 to 300,000. But from 300,000 to 325, because you're on at 299,950, you'll not get noticed because you won't be in that listing. Whereas if you put yourself at 300,000, you get yourself everybody up to 300,000, but you also get from 300 in a search from 300,000 to 325. And at that search, you're actually the lowest value when you're on at 300,000 to 325. So you look more attractive in terms of price point in comparison to properties that are actually higher value than you. And you might actually be offering better value for money. But see how so you're not missing someone out in terms of a buyer. Because if there is a buyer there that is only up to 300,000, you've completely missed them from 300,000 onwards. If you've got an estate agent that puts you on at 299,950 or 299,500 or whatever it is. So it's like I keep saying it's more. You know what it goes back to? You'll probably not remember this because youth is on your side, Sophie. But it goes back to the Woolies days, pre-internet, where 9.99 is more attractive to £10, or 99 pence is more attractive to £1. Because in your mind it's like that. But that doesn't translate onto the internet. Internet bandings are predefined on property portals, therefore they're round numbers. They're not 99 pence, 50 pence, all the rest of it. They're whole numbers, what they call them, in terms of, arithmetic. So whole numbers. So as I said, it's 10,000 bandings. I think it goes up to 300,000. And then from 300,000, it goes up in 25,000 bandings. When you get up to about 500,000, it goes in 50,000 bandings from there on. So you must make sure your estate agent, when you're listing with them, understands why and how they should be pricing your property. But before you reduce any asking prices, because this is the whole the crux of the whole thrust of the show about is there's 6 top tips we want to talk about. But what I mean, that then asks me then just to go on to talk about when we're talking about Rightmove and stuff like that. What is the importance of Rightmove alerts then? Why is that? Why is that a critical factor?
So it's critical because in the timing of the price reduction, price realignment, is the impact on the buyer visibility as well. So it's all fine and well doing that, but actually what is the visibility that comes on the back of that? So homeowners need to reduce their asking price by at least 2%, as well as well, just not doing it.
Now we actually know this, don't we? We know the answer to this. Why is it 2%? Because that is the criteria that Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, S1 Homes, that is a criteria. It has to be, the reduction has to be more, 2% or more in terms of the price, or they will not send out another alert. And if they don't send out another alert, you're as good as no getting your property seen in the first place. So that's why you have to do 2%. So if you're sitting on at 200,000 now and you're wanting to introduce your property to a new audience, you have to at least put it down by £4,000. So if you're on at 200,000, you probably want to go in at 196. However, remember what I said about price bandings. If you're at 196, you've got everybody up to 200,000, but you've got nobody from 200,000 onwards. If you're on at 190, you'll have everybody up to 190, but everybody from 190 onwards. So for me personally, you're right about talking about realignment. For me personally, I would prefer to actually realign at 190 to push somebody back up to 200,000.
Absolutely. Because we were having obviously these conversations with clients, but we had a client that was on for 210 and they wanted to realign down to 208. And, we had to have that educational piece and say, there's just absolutely no point. We need to go to 200 to realign and push back up. And we always speak about realigning. I mean, we could give the example of Blackety Side until we were blue in the face, because that's a prime example of how it works and how getting the pricing banding correctly works.
So just for anybody tuning in for the first time, what was the example of Black Side then?
So Blackety Side, so that was originally for 685. We actually realigned that multiple times. Because we always say as well, it's not how long you've been on the market, it's how long has your buyer been on the market. And if their buyers were actually from out of the area, they were from down south, and it was realigned down to 595 just to try and capture. It didn't start with a capture a new audience. And the offer that was accepted was back up at the home report value at the 685. So it might sound scary taking it from 685 to 595, but we still got an offer accepted at 685. So it just shows you.
We pushed it back up by almost 100,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is a brilliant example.
It can be done, and there's loads of other examples out there like that, and we could talk about that quite a lot. But in essence, that's what it is. That's what realignment is. It's introducing you to another audience in order to push it back up, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. So no, that is getting it key, because you want to trigger as well as you're just waiting for somebody to scroll again. We need to be triggering alerts for Rightmove to resend it out so that then you're there in their faces. It also ensures obviously it approves on Rightmove, on the market email alerts as well. Zoopla, it is 3%, so that's where we do get our clients and we educate them.
Changed. Yep.
Yes, 3%. So that's where we do educate the buyers, but we tend to kind of do more than 2% anyway, so that we fall into obviously the banding for the portals anyway. So it does tend to be a 2 to 3% that's happening anyway. But obviously the current state of play, which I'm sure you'll talk to us about, Jim, but the current state of play in the Fife property market.
Oh, let me think about that. Current state of play in the Fife property market. Well, I would say that several Fife home movers have said to me recently that they really believe that the greater number of price reductions are actually happening at the moment compared to a couple of years ago. There's no doubt about that. I mean, if you see some of the comparables coming through when we're doing our homework, we can see from other agents that they've had it on it. For example, 295,000 offers over, and they've accepted an offer for their client at 285,000. And so you actually see it coming through now, and quite a lot of examples of what's actually over the line with other agents. I'm actually quite surprised about that, because it doesn't seem to be what we're experiencing immediately at this moment. So I'm surprised it's actually coming through like this with other agents right now. So compared to a couple of years ago, yes, there's a lot more price realignments, or what they call price reductions. They remember their price reductions, we're realignments. Two completely different things. A price reduction is the glass is half full. A price realignment is the glass is half. A price reduction is glass is half empty. A price realignment is the glass is half full. So a price realignment is all about optimism, but pushing something back up. A price reduction is about actually, I tell you what, let's give the buyer more money off your property. That's not very keen. That doesn't resonate with me at all.
No, they just want to get that sold sticker slapped up and moved on to the next one. But we just want
It might work for some people. You know, they might be motivated to move straight away. They might be motivated to look. I just want rid of it. I just want rid of it quick. But then you've got to think about when a seller panics like that and says, "I just want rid of it quick." You've got to then, as an estate agent, think to yourself, "Where are we right now?" And what audience next am I trying to introduce this to in order to attain what that seller wants at that point in time? I think that's what you need to think about. Whereas there's a quick knee-jerk reaction in the market sometimes, where if somebody says, "I really want rid of it quick," it's like, well, I tell you what, let's reduce it to the minimum amount you'll accept, which in my opinion is ridiculous. It's like that's absolutely crazy, because you could be giving away a 10 or 20,000 pound extra over and above what you would normally realign to anyway in the first place. So that's what you have to watch out for as an estate agent anyway. So if there's any estate agents out looking for advice, then that's probably my advice. Over my 30 years of experience in the property market and selling thousands of homes, and so that's my advice in terms of that. Now, as I explained in the initial part of the article, the number of properties for sale has actually substantially grown over the last couple of years, especially in the Fife area, probably right across Scotland and right across the UK as well. if there are a greater number of properties for sale, this is simple supply and demand economics. If there are a greater number of properties for sale, I would expect a greater number of price reductions. And that's because, really, if there's a greater number of properties for sale and there's the same buyers in the market at that point in time, then supply and demand says the same buyer, let's just take it in one thing changing, the greater number of properties, the same buyer has more choice. Therefore, you have to be more, you're no longer, the shoe isn't on, the boot's not on your foot anymore. It's probably on the buyers because they can choose now, because it's the likelihood a similar type of property or something that's more attractive to them might come into the marketplace. But what makes it even a wider chasm in terms of that, in terms of outlook, is when you've got the more properties come onto the market, but less buyers in the market as well. So that expanse grows bigger as a result of that. So therefore, that's why the number of realignments or number of price reductions is actually, I would say, increased quite substantially, I would say. So let me give you an example of that. In 2022, there was an average of 41 price reductions a month in the Fife area. Today, it's 95. That's a huge difference. That's more than 100% increase in terms of that. And the average Fife price reduction in the last 3 months was 5.2%. So that's basically £5,200 per £100,000 of value of that property. So if you have a property at £200,000, the price reduction would have been just taking you under the 190,000 mark in terms of the where the reduction went to. Now remember, this is 95 properties a month, but in the Fife area, there's about 500 to 600 properties sold every single month. So it's a certain proportion, but it's not a dramatic, overwhelming proportion in comparison to the number of properties that actually sell for the right price or more. So the statistics in the Fife area reveal that while the number of properties for sale is on the rise, the number of reduction has increased, and in fact, the percentage of Fife properties undergone property reduction or price reductions has remained roughly consistent in the recent years, with an average of 1 in 15.2, to be exact, Fife homes for sale, which is 6.6. Reducing their asking price each month over the last 5.5 years. Let me just show you, for example, what that looks like in a graph. Here we go, right here. So this graph, what it explains here overall, and you can see in here, this graph will show me overall, and I'll just see if I can point to this. So here we are in January 2019, and there. Now, in 2019, an average of 8.1% of 1,082 properties. So 1,082 properties in here, which is here, that wee bit there where I'm pointing to. Anybody see that moving about? 1,082 Fife properties on the market in 2019 reduced their asking prices per month. So 8.1% reduced. So you can see that. So the number of homes for sale is the red. Number of price reductions you can see in the yellow overall. So in comparison to that. So the yellow is on this side, the benchmark. On your right hand side, the number of properties is on the left hand side. So that's why you get the two different things. So they're roughly the same. So you can see that 8.1% in that time. It went to in 2020. So round about here, you can see how it drops dramatically. Number of properties actually dropped, but the number of properties actually, the average reductions is only 4.7 this time. In 2021, which is round about here, even less stock on the market, 628. Number of properties actually reduced was 4.8%. You can see it round here. So basically, in 2021, we were round about the 40, like we've said in our initial assessment from then till now. The average of in 2022, which is round about here, as it begins to rise now, number of stock available begins to rise, but number of price reductions follows it in trend. See how the price reductions are following the same trend. as the number of properties up for sale. Instantly enough, it changes here, but I'll see if I can explain that and why. But in 2022, which is round about here, average of 5.5% of 723 price properties on the market reduced their asking prices. In 2023, which is round about here, average 7.8% of 882 properties on the market on average in 2023 reduced their asking prices. So that's number of homes for sale in the months. And this dip here it seems to be an anomaly, but see how the number of stock actually reduces. So that's actually why that's reducing, but see how it's reducing proportionately. So in December and the beginning of January for 2024, actually the number of properties for sale had actually dropped to about the 800 mark in that time, and that's why the average number of properties reducing their price has actually dropped as well. And then it bounces back up, the number of stock on the market, as we come into the spring and summer. This is because when it comes to the spring and summer, everybody wants to put their house on the market. So what does that tell you? Put your house on the market coming into winter.
Yep.
Sorry? Winter, I hear you say. Winter is potentially the best time. This time of year is the best time to sell a property and put it on the market. Why do I say that? Because the demand is still out there for people buying. People move for circumstances. The demand's still there. It doesn't really peter off. People are still interested and they're still looking. And if you put your house on the market, you're getting the first kick at the goals before anyone else goes on in the spring and the summer. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It does,
especially because when
doesn't
you think
it?
about it as well, we're now in the school holidays. I mean, I feel like they've only just gone back, but now you've got 2 weeks of the school holidays, so people have got time as well to be looking. So yes, there's going to be more stock on. There's going to be less stock on the market because everybody went on the summer, or they wait until next year. But there's 2 weeks of school holidays just now, so people have maybe got a bit more time on their hands to be looking and making a serious
Yeah.
plan because you've still got time to be in before Christmas as well. You know, so this would be an ideal time.
I would say so. And so if we go back to that graph there, you can see the trend of number of properties actually reducing their price follows the same trend as the number of properties actually on the market. Although it's outstripping it here. Look how it's jumping up now and here. So the number of properties on the market, but it's gone beyond that now. It's not below that anymore. And this is due to what we talked about, to things like legislative measures by the Scottish Government about second homeowners. This is due to maybe mortgage affordability and prices going up as well, and number of buyers actually holding off as a result. So, but we always know as the trend, as the number of buyers hold off, all it does is back up the water on the dam, if that makes sense. So let's, for example, these buyers are all still there because remember they're moving for circumstance. I'll try and explain it in an analogy. They're moving for circumstances. So the longer they wait, the more the more important their circumstance and why they're moving becomes a higher priority in their life. Hence the reason why when the floodgates open and the dam bursts, so to speak, because that's what holds it back, really, something that happens in the economy at that point in time, or something happens in their life at that point in time, then when the dam bursts, so to speak, then the flood comes through. Classic example of what happened in COVID is that example. All these people held off in COVID, and then as soon as COVID was over, it was like a flood had suddenly descended of buyers into the market, and the prices of property went sky high, and people scrambled for it, and the number of properties actually dwindled quite quickly because the supply was taken out of the market so quick with the amount of demand, and therefore the number of properties reduced available, but the buyers were still there, so the price actually went up as supply and demand reflects on the economic chart. And that's a typical example. It could happen on a smaller scale when you do that and you sell right now. Best time of year to sell is Christmas. Every single time. So just to pop onto that graph again and just show you in isolation in terms of that graph there. See, there's the percentage of Fife homes reduced in price, 2019 to 2024, all Fife estate. Remember, this is all Fife estate agents. This is not just us. So you can see how it goes up and down and all the rest of it and through there overall. So hopefully that's given you a real good insight into what's happening in the market. So What then is the question I would ask you, Sophie? What then is the ideal pricing strategy for Fife homes?
Okay, so the initial pricing strategy is absolutely a pivotal role in the speed and also success of your property sale. If your property is priced too high from the onset, you tend to linger on the market, eventually requiring more significant reductions because it might not even just be the one. You might have to do two, you might have to do three. Right from the offset, you could then be almost what we would then call a sticky property. And then it would be, because then we're having to work harder to generate the interest. And then as well, it comes that mindset of people automatically, even though there is absolutely nothing wrong with the property, they'll then go, oh, you've been on the market a while, there's something wrong with the house. That's when then the mindset goes. So if we start off, obviously not priced strategically at the beginning, it could just end up having an absolute knock-on effect and you will linger about. In contrast, though, if your home is priced realistically from the beginning, you are more likely to attract, obviously, offers, buyers. And the most crucial thing, and this is, we were actually having this conversation with a client, is not only getting buyers through the door, but at least getting that price feedback and at least people to negotiate with. If we price too highly and we don't even able to get anybody through the door to even get price feedback or even be able to negotiate, we're then almost at a stalemate, and it's not worth. We need to be priced realistically, so at least we've got people to negotiate with to then drive the price back up to get you obviously as much money in your pocket. For Fife homeowners considering a higher initial asking price, it's advisable to be prepared that you will need to potentially adjust and obviously be aware of that. A reduction, say in the first week, 2 weeks to 4 weeks, can prevent your property from stagnating on the market and almost becoming sticky. Whereas waiting almost your 2 to 4 months might diminish the chances. And then that is also where, obviously, through no fault of the property and obviously your agent, people then ask questions of why, and they automatically go to there's something wrong with it. And then again, that's just where we go.
It's typically what happens. Before we discuss the sixth thing to consider when you price reduce or when you're considering it, let me just run you through the Dunfermline area and price reductions so you can see it. So here we are right here. So hopefully everybody can see that. This is the, and I've got a wee app on here that tells me price reductions. So you can see in this one, there's no price reduction so far, no price reduction, there's one. So this one. So here's a classic one there. It's been on Barnhouse, and it went on in September. Oh, wow. So that's literally gone on a couple of weeks ago, and it's had it's had two price reductions already.
Wow.
That's quite surprising, isn't it? Wow. Never thought. There's another one, had a price reduction. You don't get to know unless you're logged into this, but you can see that. So that's literally, again, that's another one being in September, and that's been price reduced again. That's the same agent. Wow. It's like, woo. They're obviously quite trigger happy when it comes to price reductions. And then when you go through, there's no more there. There's no more there. Let me look. Keep going through. So this falls in line with the 1 in 10 or the 1 in 15 of what we're talking about. So we should go past about 30 now, and we should start to see price reductions coming through again. See, there's another one. So there's another one listed in March. That's had a couple of price reductions since March. And then we're on to the next page. We've got initial asking price, initial, keep going. There's another one being reduced. That's been on since July. So there's another one being reduced. So you can see how that works in terms of price reductions overall, in terms of where that is and what's happening so far. But I'm actually quite surprised about that one. 2 properties within such a short space of time actually reducing the price straight away. That kind of tells me maybe they should have had that discussion with the client in the first place. Where they were in terms of what their expectations was. Anyway, apart from that, the 6 things to consider. So I'll kick off with the first one, I think, to consider at this point in time, Sophie. When considering a price reduction, and the one for me that's obvious is the lack of viewings. People say. So my advice, if you haven't received many viewings in the initial few weeks, then look at your photographs and the write-up on the portals and compare them with other properties in your price range. So compare them. See what, I mean, personally for me, that's the first thing you should have done before you did that. before you put it on. You should be looking at your price banding and thinking, okay, is your house more attractive? Would you buy your house before you buy someone else's house if it was on the market in that price banding at that point in time? If the answer to that is no, then you're probably at the wrong price band at this point in time. That's a good indication. And that's the things you've got to look at. So if you are up to standard, then it may be time to reconsider the pricing and time to talk to your agent in more detail how to attract more viewings. Remember, lack of viewings, and you talk about price reduction, you need to get it around in your head, and you need to get in your estate agent's head. You're not actually reducing your price. You're reducing the initial asking in order to attract another audience, in order to potentially push the price back up when you get that person through the door. It otherwise hasn't seen your property because your property wasn't in their banding in the first place. Now, generally, most buyers have about 10% more than they're actually looking for in order to be able to afford, what they're afford. So if they were looking up to 200,000, they'd probably be able to afford at a push 220,000. So if your house is around about the 210, then probably that's why you want to put yourself down to about the 200,000 mark, so you could catch them and you can push them up to 210, 220.
Because as well, I think it's saying to clients, we're realigning it down, but it's still going to be offers over that price. But the home report's still the same value. The home report is that initial value. It's just for us then to push it up as well. And it also means people can get a mortgage up to the home report value as well. But
so
just to get
six things to coming back to 6 things to consider price reduction. What's the second one you would think about? What I've done number one. What's number two for you?
So on the back of no viewings, it would be you've had viewings, but nothing's come of it. We've had no offers. We've had maybe no notes of interest. There's just been, yes, there's been activity, but nothing obviously of substance. So the UK property market viewings to offers ratio is between 8 to 10 viewings per offer. So if your property hasn't had any offers within the first 30 days, yet you've had loads of viewings, that strongly suggests that the price is a sticking point. But that's where as well your agent, if you had those viewings, it's crucial for them to get that price feedback. And that's what we do with all of our viewers and everybody that goes through the door. It's getting that price feedback. So at least obviously that can guide you and educate you if you obviously are having to look at your pricing strategy. You could ask why they're not making an offer. Yet research has shown many people don't want to make an offer that they perceive could also offend. A lot lower than an asking price is what we're referring to in that case. We'd rather be like, we don't even want to kind of test the water, if you like, or we don't even want to dip our toe in with an offer because we think it's far too low for what we think the property's worth.
I've had that before. I've had that before where somebody's actually said that, look, I don't want to make the offer because I think I would offend them. And to be honest, I said, no, give me the offer. Because the reality is, if you don't give me the offer, then they don't get any price feedback. Therefore, they don't know where the market is right now. Therefore, they're still in the dark about where their property is. It's important, remember, that we actually get that. So that's why price feedback is so important. Even though you're not offering, if you were offering, what would that offer be? I've done that before, by the way, even though we're no offering. Even though you're not offering, if you were offering, what would that offer be? And then they come in and go, well, that's my offer. They go, you want me to take that to the client then? Because that sounds all right. That's like job done, house sold.
Tick. It's like a hypothetical offer. So that would be, I would say, number 2 is you're getting viewings, but there's nothing, there's no offers, there's no notes of interest, there's nothing actually to work with. And that's when it's almost, again, stalemate.
Third one. The next one for me is probably low offers. You're continually getting low offers. Home buyers often make low offers, really for a variety of reasons, primarily to secure the best possible deal. One key factor is market conditions. In a buyer's market, especially, where there are more homes available than there are buyers, purchasers actually feel that they've got the negotiation power to do this. Another reason is the property condition. If a home requires loads of repairs and improvements throughout, maybe the kitchen's completely dated and needs gutted, maybe the bathroom needs gutted. But again, that for me personally is down to the way your estate agent or the way your viewing agent actually discusses it and negotiates it while they're there. A classic example of that is Ellis Place. years and years ago, I remember having someone round to Ellis Place and Cellar Dyke and saying to me, it's going to cost £50,000 to do all these refurbishments. So I really can't see me being able to make an offer. And I went, okay, just run me through the £50,000. Where do you think that is? And then they went through things like, well, I've got the kitchen. I said, so what do you think for the kitchen? It says 15,000. I went, okay. I could do that kitchen for about 8, by the way. I did say that to them. Windows, is that the next thing? Yeah, okay, windows. And they said, what do you think the windows is going to cost you? And they went, oh, it's going to be about £15,000. I went, okay, I could probably do that these windows for about £8,000 as well. And then what else? What else are you thinking? Oh well, we've got the bathroom, and we've got the heating, and we've got the electrics. And I said, so what do you think that's going to cost you? And they went, oh, probably another £20,000. All right, so that's where you're getting your 15,000 from. Okay, so I could probably do that for round about £9,000. So I'm coming in round about £25,000. You're about £50,000. I'm a landlord with quite a number of properties. I've been in it for 30 years. I know the contractor's prices. So I could probably do it for 25. However, if you buy the property, I'll charge you 50 and I'll do the job for you if you want. But I could do it for 25. And then they understood. And then they actually revised their offer. And I think we actually sold them it at that time. But it's been able to handle that objection and take it away. That's where the skill and expertise lies. This is why I'm quite reluctant sometimes for a homeowner to do their own viewings.
Yeah.
Because when they get into that, it's easy. Well, I know what I'm like when I go around and a homeowner's doing the viewings and I'm negotiating a price for my portfolio. Happy days. It's like, because I know fine, I can get the price I want out of the homeowner. And negotiate with them easily on the spot and basically just back them into a corner and get them to agree to any price I want. I'm wanting to buy that property at. And that's why I'm reluctant sometimes to send a seller round, a buyer round to a seller's property and actually let the seller do the viewings. Because I don't think, well, how many sellers are actually estate agents? How many people are actually strong negotiators? I mean, it takes a skill and expertise to do it. And often, if you're knowing that skill and expertise, you could lose £5,000 or £10,000 because you might agree to a price and not actually know how to handle an objection from a potential buyer that's right in front of you. This is why the easy option for a seller, if you are doing your own viewings, by the way, if you're a seller out there and you are doing your own viewings, if you do get your buyer actually trying to negotiate with you, say, look, that's why I've got an estate agent. It's an easy one to dodge. If they're asking you, what are you looking for in terms of price? It's an easy one to dodge. Don't, for goodness sake, try to say, well, I've got it on for 400,000, so I'm expecting more than that. That is the wrong thing to say if you're a seller and a buyer says anything, what are you expecting? Because you could end up blowing that person out of the water and you'll never see them again. Whereas a skilled estate agent could actually focus that back, or a skilled viewing person can focus that back at the buyer and actually get a different answer out of them as a result of that. And a classic example of that is, what are you expecting for the price? It says, so what are you thinking yourself in terms of the price point? What would you like to pay for it? Or what is it worth to you? I know personally, it's on offers over 375,000. The home report's sitting at 410,000. So what sort of number are you thinking about in terms of where you are? And see how that's reflected back quite easily. But for an unskilled person, or it's doing their own viewings, it's quite difficult for them to understand that and be able to relay that on the spot because they're not used to doing it. So they become very uncomfortable and they close off and their brain goes into panic mode. And it goes, oh my God, shut down. And all you'll not remember this, the numbskulls. This is from years ago. Nowadays, I think it's that Disney film. They've got the wee things in their head, the wee emotions and everything running about. I can't remember what it's called. But that's effectively what happens to people when they're not trained in negotiation skills. When a buyer asks the seller a question right on the spot in their house and they panic. Hence the reason why sometimes you really need a skilled negotiator to go and do that for you. I always say then, why would you employ an estate agent and then go and do the work yourself? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
So low offers you've got to contend with. And as I said, market conditions, another reason, property condition, repairs improvements, buyers offer Buyers will offer less really just to compensate the fact that they're going to do the improvements. But
Mhm.
you've got to then identify as well as, are they doing the improvements that are not necessarily done just because they want the cosmetic improvements and they're trying to get you to pay for it?
Yes.
That's another thing you've got to watch out for as a seller. And it's a skillful way to turn that around and negotiate that and point that out to a buyer so you don't offend them, so they don't walk away from the deal. Additionally, uncertainty about the future of the property market in general, and any can lead to them being more cautious in their approach, and conservative in their offers, with a small c, by the way. If you're continually getting lower offers, it's always smart to remember the home is worth what someone is really willing to pay for it. Surveyors
Absolutely.
used to say that all the time. When I used to get surveys done on properties way before Home Report, before that was done, back in the day, I used to get the surveyors saying to me, well, property's only worth what somebody's wanting to pay for it. And effectively, that's what I'm going to put on the valuation. Because it's just like, wait a minute, it's on the market for 95,000. I'm getting it for 75. Yeah, I'm going to put 75 on the valuation. But hold it. Why would you be doing that? Well, it's only worth what somebody's willing to pay. That was pre-Home Reports. That's what surveyors used to do. So with that in mind, it's not what you think it's worth, it's what the buyer thinks it's worth. Not what the estate agency says it's worth, but it's what the buyer is prepared to pay. So
Absolutely.
the 6 things to consider before doing a price reduction is, the first one is the lack of viewings and what we've said about that. The next one is viewings but no offers. The next one is low offers. Would we be taking number 4, market saturation, into account? How many properties are on the market, and what would we do about that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially if, again, we were having this conversation with a client last week or a couple of weeks ago, and it's a case of having a look and seeing what else is on, especially if it's maybe in a village or a town, what else is on the market in that area. Just search that area and what else is available. And this is something that you touched on as well, in terms of where do you sit in terms of those properties. Say if there's another 8 on the market within that village, within that town, where does your property sit at within the pricing? What is a potential buyer getting for their money? What does it look like? Also, another great thing to do, and this is something that we were educating our seller on, is also look at, because again, Rightmove tells you this when you're going through, how long have those other properties been on the market for? To just give you an indication of, one, maybe yours isn't the only one that's been on for that long, but also the other ones, have they also had a price reduction, but you're still sitting there at that very initial pricing and it's not gone down, nothing's changed. So you are going to sit there because everybody else around you in that village and area is realigning down and they're still not even selling. And yours is potentially the second most expensive one. So it's all of those parts. So absolutely, market saturation comes into it, because you need to look at homes that are on the market. For example, if you've got a 2-bed apartment, look for the 2-bed apartments. Obviously, there's no point comparing apples with oranges here. So you need to, obviously, it needs to be relevant. But look at also because obviously Rightmove gives you the options to include what is obviously sold, subject to conclusive missives, but look objectively at your home. And something that obviously you touched on earlier, Jim, would you buy your property at that price, or is there another one in your area that you would prefer to buy that for, because actually it's priced more realistically and you actually would prefer that one? So you need to kind of take the emotion out of it and almost look at it as an outsider looking in, and be objectively look at your home. Do you stand out from the competition? And this is where you also touched on, it isn't just the pricing. If you're happy with your photos, you're happy with how it's being marketed, then pricing, again, it comes down to that. That's why as well you should have a look at doing the drop down and selecting, showing what's sold, because that also give you an idea of what buyers are buying, obviously, from your area. And also ask your friends to do the same. Make it like an open forum, so it just as well, so it's not putting obviously your kind of thoughts and it takes the emotion out of it. Ask family, friends, ask neighbours, people that are in your area, and see and get what their thoughts are in terms of pricing. Get them to be 100% honest with you, just like we kind of say, do you want us to sugarcoat it, or do you want us to just tell you how it is?
I think it's a case that when you ask your friends, actually ask them to be honest, but it's not to be honest for a slagging match for the stage. It's got it on.
No.
It's to be honest, as in, would you buy my house before you'd buy that house at the same price, and vice versa. and that'll give you a good indication. And be honest with yourself, and don't try to screen it and just look for people that'll actually agree with you. I think that's the most important point. The fifth one for me is definitely, when you think about this out of the six, is the seasonal adjustments. Be mindful about the seasonal trends in the property markets. Periods of high market activity might require different strategies from the slower months of, say, November and December. And this is why I tend to say November, December, October, November, December seem to be really good months to sell, because you've still got the buyers out there, but you've got less stock available typically to buy, because a lot of people hold off until the new year, and they think in the new year their house is going to fly off the shelf. But what they don't realize is everybody else is thinking the same thing. So it's like everybody's running for the market at the same time when it comes to spring and summer, and therefore to get because they want to see all their blooms in the garden. But the reality is, when you're on in October, November, December, you're on at the same time as everybody else, and everybody's photographs look exactly the same. The gardens don't look flowery because they shouldn't, because it's this time of year. The house looks different from the front. The skies are not as blue as they used to be. The sun's not as out as it used to be, but that's quite normal. And normal's okay as long as your photographs show your interior property to the best it can be. I think that's the most important thing. So seasonal adjustments of prices are definitely another one to think about. The final one for me is, what is the final one?
Something we've already touched on is getting that consistent feedback, getting the feedback. If you have a bit like obviously viewers but no offers, what is the feedback? What does that feedback look like? You always want to get feedback. And getting that price feedback is absolutely crucial as well. We also say that if there's maybe some people watching this and go, yeah, but I didn't get feedback because the people never picked up the phone or they didn't give me feedback, that's your answer just there. Obviously, we always say if you've tried a couple of times and nothing, they're obviously not interested, because you'd be chomping at the bit for the property. You won't want to lose it. But
this again takes me back to, if you're the seller and you're doing the viewing, get the feedback there and then.
Yeah.
So just what to do is, when you get to the end of the viewing, say, what's your thoughts then? As the seller. If you're the seller and you're doing your own viewings, or anybody that's doing viewings, get to the end of the conversation when you're taking somebody around, you're finally taking them around, they've seen everything they need to see, and just say, lean on the side of the wall or something like that, or on the, wherever it is, casually, because it makes it relaxed. Then when you do that, if you stand straight and put your hands behind your back, you're always confrontational. Body language says everything. If you put your hands in front of you, do not put your hands in front of you, because it makes it look like body language indicates you're hiding something, because you know where your hands cover, the first thing they cover, and it's an indication that you're hiding something, even though you're not. So the key is to just relax, fold your arms. Remember, show your hands. So you're not, because if you do that, that's you closed off. Show your hands, fold, relax, lean against the wall, and just say to someone at the end of it, so what's your thoughts? Remember, there's a clear line of sight, by the way, out the door, so they don't think they're trapped. So don't stand in front of any doorways or anything like that, and then say, so what's your thoughts? And then just go quiet. There's a compelling point at that point in time when you go quiet. The other person feels the need to talk.
Yep.
And then that's when you get everything out of them. That's when they start to talk. So that's what you do when you're a seller, and you're doing your own viewings. That's what, once you've taken somebody around, the key point of getting feedback at the end, because you often get it at the end, they'll volunteer it, but it's very difficult to get them when you're following them up on the phone, because they've got busy lives. You're trying to follow them up, maybe at their work, they're on holiday, whatever they're doing. You've got their undivided attention there and then. So why wouldn't you get the feedback right there and then? And it's a skill.
Absolutely.
It's a skill to do that, definitely. So the 6 things to consider when you're looking at a price reduction, if you have to look at a price reduction, 1 in 15 is a statistic right across all agents in Fife actually have price reductions every single month. The 6 things to consider are the lack of viewings and what to do about it, viewings but no offers and what to do about it, if you get low offers and what to do about that, market saturation, what to do about that, seasonal adjustments, in other words, timing of the year, what to do about that as well. And the final one you said there, Sophie, was the feedback from the viewings. So how important is it then when leveraging expert advice? Why would it be important?
Well, as we always say, obviously selling your home, it's your biggest asset. So you want to obviously make sure that you have, especially with all the complexities of the Fife property market, you want to make sure that you have all of the correct information that's also accurate and relevant to yourself. So seeking a second opinion from, an expert, whether you were to pick up the phone to one of us, message us, leave comments on this video if you like, but reaching out to obviously ourselves allows us to give you the insights into especially your specific situation, your specific circumstances. It's also essential to choose a consultant who will offer honest advice. Just like we say, do you want the sugar-coated version, or do you just want us to be honest with you to get your property sold at the end of the day, so you're not one of these stagnant ones on the market? Possibly telling you what you maybe don't want to hear, but what you do need to hear to obviously get over that line. Are you potentially putting it out there, as I say, comment, reach out to us. Are you currently on the market within Fife, and are you contemplating a price reduction? Is it, when you say contemplating, is it something that you've thought of? Has your agent brought that to you? Have you had that conversation with them? Or perhaps you are swithering about going to market, and maybe actually watching this has made you think, oh no, actually I'm ready to go now. We could just do it in these months. Let's not wait till next year. So are you considering it? But do you want to speak a bit more about pricing and what that looks like? Obviously you can reach out to one of us. You can come and do a no obligation, but it's your dedicated time to have an expert sitting with you, giving you the most accurate but realistic valuation for your home, asking any of those questions you have, and it'll give you, I think, a fresh perspective on the property market, the strategy that we would use. So yeah, feel free to, as I say, message on here, pick up the phone,
Definitely.
call us. Absolutely, that's what we are here for.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for coming on, Sophie. So if anybody wants to listen to that podcast, it's on this post on the link above or below. You can watch the video over again, or you can just read the article. It's entirely up to you, but there's a lot of good insight into the podcast, exactly into this article and what you should be doing, why you should be doing it. If you're sitting on the market right now and you are trying to get your house sold, as I said, 1 in 15 home sellers in Fife, right across the whole of the estate agents in Fife, actually every single month reduce the price of their property. Should never reduce it. My advice is you should always realign it. And if you're just tuning in, that's what you need to see in this show. You need to listen to the podcast as well. Until next time, thanks for coming on the show, Sophie, and I'll speak to everyone else. Bye-bye for now, folks.
Bye for now.